Hello, everyone. Good evening, good afternoon to all of you guys out there. This is our another episode on the Football Doctors program. We have been having very good, controversial guests at times, and at times some people do not want to say much. But I would say the person I have today is a well-known figure in Malaysian football, a very good friend of mine, and a very good coach who has coached thoroughly throughout Asia. He hails from Liverpool, the United Kingdom. He has coached in the likes of Bahrain. He has been in Australia with Sydney Olympics. He has been the national coach of the Vietnamese women's team. He has been in Singapore with Home United. He has been the Thai national coach with Peter Reid, the famous Peter Reid. He has been with Mohan Bagan in Mumbai City of India. And not forgetting, he has been in Malaysia with Perak, Johor, and Kelantan. And it is none other than our Steve Darby. Yeah, welcome, Steve. It's good to have you on board.
Apa khabar?
Hi, kabar baik. You have not forgotten, yeah?
No, faham bahasa sikit-sikit, but it's going slowly now, sadly. Yeah, I need to see some more P. Ramlee films.
Oh, wow, classic. That's good, Steve. Good to hear from you. Steve, after you left, we do not have some good coaches of your caliber here who actually adds a lot of color to the Malaysian football scene. It's sad that no new faces. We have only the old faces being recycled. It's sad, actually. But now what we are going to talk about today is the topic for you, Steve, is Malaysia's long road to football recovery, or I do not know what to say, maybe discovery, if ever they do, and the challenges that lies ahead for Malaysia. You have been here, you know in and out about Malaysian football from the beginning and until you left. I know also you had a lot of problems with Kelantan. I remember that very much. So take a couple of minutes, Steve, to introduce yourself, things that I have not mentioned anything out there earlier. And then let's get into the topic of what is your perspective of Malaysian football on the whole before we go into the minute topics.
Okay, well, everything I say is based on 6.5 seasons in Malaysia, really. You can say 6.5 years, but I think in seasons like most football men do. 3 at Johor, 3 at Perak, and about half at one at Kelantan. But funnily enough, all ended in disputes. Luckily, I won 2 of the disputes, so it was okay in the end. But the reality is, I love the country. I would feel very, very comfortable in retiring to that country, in Malaysia. The people, I feel comfortable. The language is good. It doesn't snow in Kelantan, so I'm very happy to be in places like that. Yeah, I'm happy to be a Mat Saleh or an Orang Putih, as I was called. I was called a few other names as well, but I can't repeat them. Though I found Bahasa probably the easiest of the languages I speak, because it's phonetic.
Absolutely.
What you see, you get. And I'll be honest, I learned it via P. Ramlee. On the away trips with Johor, we used to put P. Ramlee films on. So I used to watch Do-Re-Mi, Alibaba, Bearded Fox.
Wow.
And I learned words like Jalan-Jalan, Gaji, Bonus, Cuci Mata. They're all important words. Johor players taught me those words.
All right.
So basically, that was my back. Everything I say today would be based on that experience.
Okay. So um, having said that, let's go straight into the topic. Uh, I said earlier that Malaysia's long road to recovery. Why I said recovery is because we have gone down the drains and we are going into deeper into the drain. Yeah, it's getting much worse. And I don't think there is anything being done by the current administration to improve. Neither has the league improved. You know, recent issues. I think I told you some time back earlier that the issues between Negeri Sembilan and Kelantan showed very clearly that football is not progressing. It is regressing. You know, so you have been here. Do you think, in your opinion, Malaysia would be able to recover in the near future? What's your take on it?
Right. Well, I sat and thought about this a lot, obviously, and I thought I'll look at it from the top downwards.
Okay.
And there's certain things that apply, what I say now, applied when I was there. But you have to make an exception now because of JDT.
Okay.
What I think JDT has done is raise the bar. You know, the stadium or stadiums, the training facilities, the structure, the amount of staff, the academies. Two of my ex-players, Sutesh and Ahmad Jarul, are working in the academies. So, you know, they are doing something a bit special, I think. If the others get pulled up by JDT, then there is certainly hope. I believe that strongly. But the major things to me, when I've looked at it, is the most important thing to me are the pitches. When I first came to Malaysia, it was 1998, pitches like Sarawak and Perlis were like bowling greens. You could play snooker on them. You know, and they had the seagrass. They didn't have the cow grass, which the other teams had. But gradually, as I went longer and longer, and I left probably in 2000 and I think it was 2008, my last job in Malaysia, the pitches were terrible, and you won't get a good game if you haven't got a good pitch. And that stems as well onto the training grounds. The training grounds were appalling. When I was at Johor, for example, we trained on the polo fields. We had no dressing rooms. We used to get changed in the car. There was a hose. One rubber hose was the shower, and that was totally open to the weather and to the public. I brought the balls, the bibs, and the nets in the back of my car. Proton, I might add, though, it was a good Malaysian car. So, but now that's improved at JDT. But even at Perak, we didn't train at a training ground. We trained on the stadium, which isn't good for the pitch. And at Kelantan, we were hunting around for pitches all the time. We couldn't train on the pitch because of the weather was too bad. We had to train on a school pitch. Again, virtually no dressing rooms. So that has to be improved, I think. Pitches at training level, certainly at youth level as well, obviously, but at the major level. What I think has improved, though, is the number of staff I see now. I see team photographs, and I see staff, about 10 staff on some of them, which is great. It's starting to treat players more professionally by having more professional staff. I only ever had an assistant coach, a goalkeeper coach, and a fitness coach near the Kelantan. Anywhere else, I only had a physio who doubled up. I had a physio called Din, who used to, at Perak, he was my fitness coach and physio. He was my physio in Kelantan, but he was also, we had a fitness coach. But it started to get better a little bit while I was there. But certainly, the reality is, it's, in the old days, they had no physios sometimes. We used to have, I'll say, almost BOMOs in some cases. But how the players got better, I'll never know. So that's got better. But what I think is very important for the top of the game is TV coverage. It has to have quality camera work. And I can't tell someone how to do that because I can't do it. It's not my job. But I do know what's good and I know what's bad. So you need quality TV coverage, camera work, production. I think in a country like Malaysia as well, you certainly should have two languages, obviously Bahasa and English, because of the multicultural society in Malaysia. Both languages are essential. And a difficult one now, because I know I'll get abused for it, kickoff times. The kickoff at 8:45 is, I've got to be honest, is so difficult. It's difficult for the media because they can't get the morning headlines in. They can't get a decent story in. They might just get a snippet in sometimes. It's difficult for a man who wants to take his wife and his kids, his little girl, his little boy, because she's maybe got school the next day. If they're playing Sunday over to midweek game. So they're not going to get back home till midnight. And it makes it very difficult for away fans as well. That was very hard. At times, I used to see some of our away fans at Perak, how they got back to Perak from, say, Pahang at midnight. I don't know how they did it sometimes. But, I respect them for what they did. So the kickoff time to me has to change. I'm not a Muslim, and I know it's based on the Islamic section because of the prayer times, but I've played in Bahrain and I've played in Saudi, and they kicked off at 7:30. So there's certainly other Islamic countries that do have different times, more socially acceptable times, I shall say. But I know I'm not going to win that one, I don't think. So that's in terms of what I think would make the top of the game better. Now, the next thing I'd say, which I think will make the game better, is I know going to get me some controversy, possibly, because last time I said it, I got some abuse. I think Malaysia should allow legal gambling. The reason I say that is I base it on the Singapore model, where the government control the money. Because what's happening now is, let's not stop kidding ourselves. There are thousands of Malaysians, whether they be Hindus, whether they be Christians, and let's be honest, some of the Muslims are betting on the game. And the money is going out of the game into illegal bookies. So all the profits are going out of the game. They're not going back into the game. If you had legal betting, and hey, you don't have to bet. If you're a Hindu, Christian, or Muslim, you don't have to bet. No one's forcing you. Same as alcohol. You don't have to drink alcohol. So the same principle to me should apply to the gambling. You don't have to do it. But if you're going to do it, let's control it. Let's make sure the money is not going out of the game and the profits are going maybe into youth development, looking after orphan kids, for example. It doesn't matter where you're from. That's it. Giving some to charities. I know, for example, the British Paralympic team wouldn't exist without the national lottery here. Similar, not the football, but similar to the football. But it's legal gambling, and all the profits are going into really good causes. So that to me is, I know, controversial. And last time I wrote it I got abused in the paper, in a couple of the Malay papers. And the crazy thing was, one of the guys who was abusing me, I know he bets on the games. So, but I couldn't say it because I couldn't prove it. But I had other players come to me saying, "Coach, that bloke puts money on our games." So the hypocrisy factor is huge in that area. I think my view is money should go into the game, not out of it. And if we can do some good as well for society, that's even better. Okay, I imagine I'm going to get some brickbats for that, but I'm a long way away now, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
We look at the youth.
Okay.
It's at times I honestly felt, and I was guilty of this as well. At times I honestly felt the youth team was a gesture.
Okay.
It wasn't really, let's plan this program so we can develop our younger players. They should have the same principle: good pitches, good coaches, and have a pathway. And they should play more games, and that's really, really important. And I think you should look after them, because I always remember reading, and I'm certain, correct me if I'm wrong, please do, some of the Negri Sembilan young players got caught up in match fixing. And the reality is, if you're paying somebody 20 ringgit or whatever it was, some fixers will come in and seduce young lads with maybe 200 ringgit a game. And they've got them for life because they're in the system. So you've got to look after them, protect them from that type of thing, which does go on. And again, People say, oh, no, it doesn't. It does. And all of us in football know these things go on. So we've got to do that for, and I think it should be almost compulsory to get your license to have a club, to have an academy with a block of young players coming through the system. And now, even it's in England, you've got to have females as well. Because if you want the female game to zoom, and which you can do, as we've seen in Thailand and we've seen in Vietnam, you do need to look after the females as equally as well as the males. And you know, I was brought up that way. I don't care who plays football, it's he or she. You know, if they're white, black, Christian, Muslim, Hindu, Buddhist, anything, football belongs to all of us.
Yes,
so I think
absolutely.
All treated equally. That's another hard one, but you know, I know the money often went into the clubs, some of the clubs I was at, and it ended up paying salaries of players. And let's be honest, it probably ended up paying some of my salary. So,
Yeah.
you know, I can't be as hypocritical to say it doesn't go on. Another area which I think is so important, and I've thought about this in Thailand a lot, Laos, everywhere, is the subject of foreigners. Got to have good foreigners. And I base the foreigner on three things. One, are they better than the locals? Because if they're not better than the locals, what's the point of having them? Two, do they bring crowds in? You know, Kita Manju used to bring the crowds in. It was exciting. I had Suti Suksomkit and Perez Oliveira in Singapore. They brought the crowds in because people love to watch them play, entertained. And more importantly as well, are they good role models, not only on the pitch, and that means a good player, but off the pitch? Are they good pros? I've had players come through from countries where they haven't been football educated. They're just, in some cases, not educated at all in any way. And it's not good. You need to have people who've got good habits off the pitch, good standards of, you know, whether it be hygiene, behavior, lifestyle, not smoking, not drinking, so that the kids who are in the system can see the good players, what good players would, you know, are like in the reality. And I see sometimes where some of these teams have 5 foreigners and they're on the bench. I mean, madness. I would rather pay for 2 high-class quality players than I would have 5 average. You know, and you can get some really good players. At Kelantan, I had Shauki, who played for Middlesbrough in the EPL, played in the Confederations Cup for Egypt, had 70-odd caps for Egypt. And you're thinking, you know, that is the quality of player. And he was a top-class role model off the pitch as well. You know, he never drank, didn't smoke, was on time. You know, so it can be done. When I was in India, I worked with Nicholas Anelka, and I might talk about that later if you ask, but he was superb professional on and off the pitch. So it can be done. And another factor which I thought about not until later was often these teams buy 2 strikers, 2 big strikers usually, 2 big lads. And if you have these 2 big athletes, I'll call them athletes, up front, what happens now is teams don't start playing football, they start whacking it long, and it becomes a battle. And it just changes the game. It means your midfield players, who are obviously local usually, they're not getting the skills they needed. They're just whacking it long to the big man and supporting him. And of course, what will happen is if you don't play local strikers aren't going to develop. I was here in 2000 when the FAM decided no more foreigners. And what happened? Khalid Jamlas came through. Indaputra came through. Saravanan Velu came through because they got a chance. And if you don't give kids a chance to score, to play, it won't happen. And of course, what happens then? Your national team dries up. You know, so you've really got to be careful. Thailand, I wrote about this in Thailand because they had Tirasin, or they call him Mui, top class player. And he forced his way into Muantong by ability. But after Mui, there was nobody because they just are full of foreigners. And some of the foreigners weren't as good as some of the local ties, but they're paying them. So, and also what happened in the end, in some cases, and I don't know if it's the same in Malaysia, please tell me if it is or isn't, some of the foreigners are now cheaper than the locals. So say they come from a poorer country, let's be honest, usually Africa. If they come from an African country, they'll accept very low salaries, and the local boys are wanting more, and good luck to them, it's their career, and they'll get replaced by a player who's not as good, but he's cheaper because he's foreign. That's not good for the game. So
Steve, let me just interject you there, because there is something that I want to ask you. Now, recently, one of the Malaysian clubs in the Super League decided that they want to stay on with local players. They do not want to buy any foreigners, citing the reason as what you said, so that the future national teams could have more strikers, players up front, who most of the clubs look at when they buy players. So there was mixed reaction among footballing people, saying that no, we should. There was also an earlier speaker who came in this show, whom I also agreed that from the business perspective, for example, I remember North Queensland Fury in Australia had Robbie Fowler for 700,000 Aussie dollars a season, but he only played a couple of matches. But on the other hand, he brought in the money that we paid for him through endorsements, through merchandising, and so on. So there was a take on one end from here in Malaysia, saying that you could bring a marquee player instead of, like you said, when the quota is 5, clubs compete with other clubs to fill up the quota, or even I have 5 players. But like you said, that's not the case. We should just look at 1 or 2 very, very good players and leave the other slots to the local players. Now the question is, who decides? You know this. Who decides on? Many a time, I know that I've been there. It is not, sometimes the coach doesn't even know when the team signs a player. It is the team manager or people associated, the president, and so on. So do you think in Malaysia, really we get the right players? And if it is yes, do the coaches have enough say in it? That's one. Number 2, what do you think about the idea of having a marquee player from the business perspective? What's your take?
I mean, a number of good points. I agree with the marquee concept because of the business side, because what the Fowler example is a perfect example. And players like Gada in Kelantan, people came to watch him play. So he brought crowds into it. Shauki was a model pro, well worth it. The idea of, the one way to me around that idea is to have a minimum wage, not a maximum wage, a minimum wage, so that the club has got to think, if I'm going to spend, I'll say 500,000 on that player a year, for example, whatever, it might be more, I'm not sure what's getting paid out now. If I'm going to pay 500, I've got to get quality. Why should I pay 500,000 for a lower level player? So you, rather than have the maximum wage, you have the minimum wage. So then the clubs have really got to look. Now, the choosing of the player, I think it has to be a combination. Because firstly, I think it has to be a combination of the coach, because he's going to get sacked if they lose. So it's his job on the line. That's the first thing. His job is to make the team do well. So he's got to have somebody he thinks will do well. But let's be honest, it's a business. The coach has been paying out of his own pocket. So logically, the president has to have some say in it, in terms of, have we got the money? So they should sit down together and they should say, look, this is the player I want. This is why I want him. And the president might say, yeah, we've got the money, we'll do it. Or he might say, look, we can't do it unless this happens. So they've got to sit down with, and it might not just be one-on-one, the president and the coach. There might be the treasurer involved or whatever. But you mentioned a word which does scare me, team manager. Malaysia, I think, is the only country in the world that has that concept of a team manager. They have administrators in other countries who administer the team, which is vitally needed. But the term team manager in Malaysia, I think, is grossly abused. It becomes a case of like power. They believe they're Alex Ferguson. They want to pick the team. They do things behind the coach's back. How many times have we seen the coach sacked because of team manager's influence?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I was dead lucky in Johor. I had a team manager, Ahmed Mohammed, and he said to me dead straight when I came in, "You're CEO on the pitch, I'll be CEO off the pitch." Worked perfectly. He dealt with the contracts, I dealt with the players, and we worked like a team together. We discussed things about financials, about next year's players, what budget we had. Worked perfectly. In Perak, I was lucky again. I had presidents who I actually had more presidents than coaches in Perak. I survived, I think, 4 presidents, which is quite unusual, really. But I had Deputy Prime Minister, I had the son of the Sultan, Dahal Muhyiddin, the head of rugby. They were great. They just said to me, you have an administrator, a fellow called Bobby, who ran the team for me, the buses, the transport, the admin, brilliant at it. You're the boss, any problems, come and see me. And that worked perfectly in Perak for 3 years. We'll talk about how I left Perak later, because that word politics will come into it later, but it wasn't football politics, So it can be good, but I know a lot of my mates have been sacked because of the team manager's role. So that to me is the balance. But certainly, and you've got to be honest, you've got to have I think a teamwork, because there are corrupt coaches. Again, I'm not going to sit here and say all coaches are wonderful, because I've been offered money. I haven't taken it because it's something I don't believe in, but I know coaches who've taken it. So the agent comes in and says, I want Subramaniam. Okay, he says, I'll give you Subramaniam. And I say, okay, I like him, yeah, I'll sign him on. And the agent says, okay, I want 20,000 signing on fee for Subramaniam. So I give it to the agent. And what happens is the agent then gives me 10,000 back. Now, that goes on.
Okay.
Don't let anyone say, oh, that doesn't go on. It does go on. Both local and foreign coaches, I know, are guilty of this, of taking money. I've been offered it. I was actually told by one agent not to, people won't deal with me because I won't take kickback. I didn't take, and I've seen some of the money that has gone out the game. When I was at certain clubs, the previous people were taking money out of the club by signing on fees or agents' fees. Okay. I had one foreign player say to me, Coach, how much do I pay you? I said, what are you talking about? I said, you pay me by scoring goals. He says, no, what do you mean, Coach? I said, well, he explained to me, he was on appearance money. So when he got his appearance money, he had to give his part of his money back to the coach for picking him, which I thought was disgusting. And that went on, and that was actually a Brazilian coach who was doing it. He was taking money off the players. So these things go on. So there has to be some sort of transparency, some balance to stop the corruption that's going on, which does go on. So, and there's certain, as presidents do it as well, but certainly I do know that coaches do it. So if we can stop that as well, stop the corruption, it helps the game anyway.
Yeah, this corruption menace, Steve, is not only in football, it is right to the top in every echelon of life. What we can see in Malaysia now, you can see the number of cases emerging on corruption and whatnot. It is disgusting. It is very sad indeed. And like you said, it is sad to see this being in the game. Yeah. So having said that, I just want to go back a little bit earlier when you said you touched on youth development. Now, in the three clubs you were managing in Malaysia, were there any structure put forward or put forth for grassroots and youth development? I know, I totally understand from the coach's point of view, a foreign coach, unlike Sir Alex Ferguson, who had time over without being sacked from in Manchester United. I think most of the foreign coaches will not bother on grassroots and youth development because, like you said, rightfully, their neck is on the chopping block. And if 1 season, 2 seasons, you fail and off you go. You wouldn't even see the players graduating from youth into a more senior team and so on. But were you asked or were you part of putting a structure in these clubs towards the development of youth so that in future these younger boys or girls could come into the senior team, could graduate into the senior team? What's your thought on that? What are your thoughts?
Well, when you said the coach may 1 year or 2 year may not last, how about 3 weeks or 4 weeks? You know, because that is the more reality of an Orang Putih or Mat Saleh coach in Malaysia. You've got to win. You know, development long term is next week, and development is by winning more next week.
But Steve, once again, sorry, once again. Now, Orang Putihs have got a better chance in Malaysia because Malaysians envy Orang Putih, Steve.
Oh,
honestly, the envy. I will come to that topic later. Yeah, you carry on first.
Yeah, I was never asked. Like, Kelantan were doing a really good job in youth development.
Okay.
There's a lot of good lads there who did their best in difficult circumstances to develop local players. Very impressed with Kelantan. Perak were trying to do it. Though, once again, I was selfish. I tried to support where I could, but I wasn't actively involved in any way. And again, from what I see of JDT, they're doing that job now, youth development. But as a senior coach, I was judged on one thing. Now, for example, I gave Nazrul Nordin his goalkeeping debut at 18 in the Charity Shield final. I brought Ahmed Fakri on at 18, who scored a hat-trick on his debut. I was abused for doing that, for bringing him on at 18. So he scored a hat-trick. I always thank Factory for that. Rizal Zamri Yaya, or Ikan as they call him, he was playing in the FA Cup final for me at 17 in Johor. And they were saying to me, he's too young. And my view was, I didn't care if he's 17 or 37. I signed Hashim Mustafa when he was about 35. And he was still good. He was great, in fact, at 35. You know, so age is irrelevant, but you need, as you say, flow of young players coming through. There's really good operators, and to be honest, usually locals. Usually the locals are youth coaches, and there's some top class coaches I've seen. You know, I mean, we talked again, like you said, then about the problem with foreigners and locals. I don't think it should be foreign coach or local coach. It should be good coach or bad coach.
Okay.
I've seen both.
Yep.
I've seen shocking locals. I've seen shocking foreigners, and great locals and great foreigners. You know, so to me, it's not a matter of where you come from. It's what you do, your job, and when I say your job as well, I include things like your ethics. You know, you don't take your money and stuff like that. I spoke about Ahmed Mohammed, the CEO at Johor. He taught me about bamboo. He said to me, Steve, you've got to be like bamboo in Asia. And I looked at him and I thought, there's not much bamboo in Anfield where I'm from. So I had no idea what he meant. And he said, you've got to be able to bend, because you'll see things that you don't agree with. But who cares if you don't agree with it? You're not going to change Malaysian culture. And he was dead right. I have so many foreigners come in, English included, who think just because we do this in England, we're going to do this in Malaysia. Well, that's rubbish. You know, you're in a different culture. and there's a different football culture as well. You have to adapt as a foreigner, and you have to be able to bend a little. You don't snap, and snap to me would be match fixing, which I'll talk about later, or taking money off an agent, which I won't do, but I know some bend that far. I won't. So, but you have to be able to bend a little. And an example for that would be, I had an international striker ring me up one morning and say, "Coach, I can't come training." I said, "Are you injured? Are you sick?" "No, coach. I've got to take my mum shopping." And I nearly fell off the chair. I said, I pay your wages. You're a professional footballer. In fact, you play for your country. What are you talking about going shopping with your mum? He said, "Well, my dad takes her every Tuesday morning, but he's not well. So I've got to take her." And he said, "Coach, you can fine me, you can suspend me, you can drop me. But if my mum says I'm going shopping, I'm going shopping."
Wow.
And I suddenly learned, and I spoke to my captain at the time, Ahmed Sharul, and he talked about it with me. And he said, "Coach, this poor bloke has no choice." And another example was, Nantha,
Yeah.
a great player. I signed him, and fantastic lad, great player. He come to me one day and said, "Coach, here's a wedding invitation for him." I looked at it. "You can't get married that day, we're playing." And I said, "Look, I know your fiance, she's great, she'd understand, And he says, "Coach, it's nothing to do with me or her, it's our families. They've got together, the numbers are right or something, you'll understand that more than me. And that is a day I'm going to get married, and I don't have any choice." And I thought, that's right, I couldn't change it. So I went to his wedding night, and all the players went to his wedding, but I missed his real wedding because we were playing that day. So I couldn't have changed it. And I had to learn, you can't win all the time. You win when you can. There's some battles you're not going to win.
Yeah. But Steve, since you touch on that foreign and local coaches, and you also said something like an English coach wants to come to Malaysia and do things like what he did in England. Now, currently, our technical director has left. Now, they are now looking for a technical director. As you know, having worked with the Football Association Malaysia for many years and assisting 4 technical directors in my capacity in the Football Association of Malaysia, I had some work with Richard Bates, the late Richard Bates. I did some work with Ron Smith. I did some work with Robert Alberts. I did some work with Karl-Heinz Weiger. For all of them, I was their assistant because I know the local scenario. I have been in the Malaysian FA for some time, and these guys come every 4 years and go. Now, what I realized is, with due respect to all those foreigners who were there, they were great coaches. Yeah, let's not take away the credit from them. But what I would like to say is, Richard Bates had a very strict regime of training set and put forth in Malaysia. Now, he said the English system is one of the best systems, and we don't deny it. Then, within a couple of years, he left. Then came Ron Smith after taking Sabah to become Malaysia Cup champions, league champions, and we appointed him, and he came on board. Then he made changes to the whole structure, and he said the Aussie system is one of the best systems, and this is how it should be done. Fair enough. We took it, and after 4 years, he left. Came Robert Alberts, and he said the Dutch system is the best system. Then he left. Finally, Karl-Heinz Weiger came back and said, "No, let's do German. The German system is more doable," for example. So in all these technical directors, we had seen great English, Aussie, Dutch and German football. But none could solve the problem of Malaysian football. Until today, we do not have a DNA. We do not know what we are doing. We do not know the direction. There is no direction, Steve. Now, on the other hand, look at Japan. Japan sent about 44 of its best technical people mixed to Malaysia in 1994, 93, 94. They came, they studied not the coach education, but they studied the semi-professional league, went back, took what they needed, threw away the rest, and started the professional league. And now they are continuously qualifying for the World Cup. They started off with foreigners and then eventually blend in with the locals. You see, the idea of putting an assistant who is local is so that you will learn and eventually you should take over. Now, I don't see that happening in Malaysia. Why do you think that's not happening, Steve?
Right. Some very valid points. Firstly, some very good coaches there, actually. The names you named, top-class coaches.
Yes.
And I do think it's a weakness in that it did change from nation to nation to nation. For example, Australia had the same problem. They brought the Dutch in, and they messed the situation up for Australia. So I use the word culture. I don't think you can impose a culture upon another nation. I think you need people, like you said. I mean, the logic is you bring someone in who's very good and you train the local to follow on. That is logical. That would make sense to me. But I know recently you had On Kim Sui. So yeah, you have had a local in place. The biggest question is, can anyone tell me what a technical director does? Because I've been a technical director in 3 countries, in Australia, in Thailand, and in Laos. And all 3 roles were totally different. Australia was youth development, Thailand was coach education, and Laos was basically national coach as well, but also administrative. It's such a huge job that I don't think that's the first thing the FA has got to say. The technical committee, rather than just one person, technical committee's got to say, what do we want from this person? What is their role? Are they going to be changing the coach head? Are they going to be looking at the national team? Are they going to be an administrator? There's so many different roles within the role. I haven't met a country yet that has got the perfect one. I'll be honest. The English one has just left. I don't even know who the English one is now. So I don't know what's happening in England. That it doesn't seem as important in England. But I think your argument is valid in as much that certainly a local should be trained to extract the best from the foreigner, who obviously it should have been good for what he's been brought in for, and then that implemented with a local vein of thought. Because, again, it's culture. You know more about Malaysian culture than I do.
Of course.
I've been there 7 years. So what? You've been there a lot longer than that. So it's in your blood. It's not in my blood. Because the reality is that one day I would always leave Malaysia. I'd either get sacked or I'd leave. And that's where a similar thing was with my local coaches. I always tried to have a local as my assistant. I felt it was important firstly for local knowledge. They knew about the players. They knew about the players' family. They knew about who not to upset, because I had a habit of upsetting people. So they said, no, shut up, don't argue with him, ignore him, he's not important. Okay, they used to give me local wisdom. And the idea was that they should have logically followed on. Now, sadly, it never seemed to happen. But I also felt sorry for local coaches, because I also learned another phrase in Asia: don't break your rice bowl. Again, we haven't got many rice bowls in Anfield, but I understood the local player, the local coach was under more pressure, because his kids might go to a school where the dato is on the school board.
Yeah.
You know, and or he might be, his family or his brother might be employed by the dato who's in charge, and then suddenly, if he doesn't do what he's told, you know, his family's out. So I understand they have to not break their rice bowl. It takes a lot of courage to stand up, and as you know, Malaysia is a hierarchical society, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, it's
Absolutely.
the young do not criticize the old and above, whereas in the British, they don't care. A young lad will say, "Hey, no, you're wrong to me," and he won't care if I'm how old I am. It'll just be a case of if he thinks I'm wrong, and he backs it up, etc. So it's a different structure of society, different culture.
Yeah.
So that's another problem I felt. I often had. I just had to talk to my players. I talked to my local players, and they'd say, "Coach, we prefer a foreign coach because we know that you usually pick the team on ability, because the local coach is often under pressure to maybe pick the dato's nephew, or that happened to me in India. I had a lot of pressure.
Okay.
So and the local lad was under pressure, not all the time, and I had some great local coaches, don't get me wrong. I had Zach and Talib in Perak. I had others in Kelantan, Hashim Mustafa. I had another one, I can't remember his name, terrible, I can't remember his name, but he was a great coach as well. Was a great player. He played for Malaysia for years. So there are some good ones, and they were strong men as well in their own right, but they were under more pressure than me, because I was always going to leave, and they were there for life.
Okay. Because they got to face these people, these datuk and these presidents and so on, day in and day out. Yes, I agree with you. So what do you think is the strength of Malaysian football, and what is the weakness of Malaysian football in overall, in totality?
Yeah, in totality, the strength, I think, is the passion and the technical ability of the players.
Okay.
Some great players here. Don't let anyone kid you. A lot of these Malaysian lads should be in Europe and are good enough. They've got to get out this thing about, I miss home, I miss the rice, I miss the nasi lemak. Get out of that habit. Get into if you're going to be a pro, a foreign pro, you've got to be tough. You should get as many players abroad as possible, I think, local lads. And even if they fail, they'll come back stronger men. They'll come back because they've toughened themselves up. They've learned, and some will make it. There are good ones who could have made it, I think, but they're happy to stay. Jalan, Cuci Mata, Makan, Tito, do it. Get out of there. If you're going to be a top pro, you're going to be, make it, be tough, because the ability's there. The weakness, I've got to say, the politics. I've got to say that. Because I've been the victim of quite a bit of it sometimes. The reality is some of the administrative interference. And I use the word like the team manager, and I'll give you examples if you want.
Yeah,
Johor,
sure.
Yeah, in Johor, we were Johor FA, and there was Johor FC. Johor FC was funded by the Johor Corporation, and the Johor Corporation also funded Johor FA. No problem. Johor FA, we won the cup. We then won promotion, and then we were up in the Super League then, and our budget was cut every year. And it was cut by people in Johor Corporation who wanted to see JFC succeed and not see JFA succeed. We were slaughtered by budgets. On a bigger level, the reason I left Perak was dead simple. We stopped getting paid. Now, let's make no secrets, Perak was an UMNO team. I had Dato Zahid, the Deputy Prime Minister, as my president, and he was superb as a president, not a problem. And every week, every month, we paid for 2.5 years. Then we had an election in Perak, and Paz took over. And Paz stopped paying the players. Not just stopped paying me as well, but stopped paying the players. And we had young lads who literally had no money. They were living on Maggie Mee, and they had some of the young lads, not educated, left school at 15, can't handle a budget, can't handle their money month to month. By the end of week 2, they were broke, in the month. Oh, and they was really struggling. So I was told I would never be able to sort it out. So I thought I'm going to try, because I knew I was going to go anyway. So I got an appointment to see the Mentry Bazaar. I went to see the Mentry Bazaar. I managed to get an appointment to get in to see him. And I said, you've got to pay these lads. Look, I told him straight, I've paid personally a couple of the young lads' wages to get them out of trouble, because they've got young kids. They're not eating properly. The kids aren't eating properly. And he just looked at me and said, oh, it should be an honour to play for the state. I said, I agree. I said, so I take it that it's an honour for you to be Mentry Bazaar. So I knew I was gone then anyway. So, and what summed it up was we were broke. The team was broke. We had AFC commitments. We got the money to go to AFC, and we had the budget off AFC, and I had to go with 14 players. That's all I could afford, and I took 3 staff. So there was 17 of us. We had the money for 25, but we could only afford to take 17 people. All right, I didn't mind that, because I knew that was what we had to do. We got to the airport, and there were 7 of the committee men flying business class.
Oh my!
And when they got to Lebanon, they went straight away and got the bus to Damascus and went shopping. So I mean, when I see things like that going on, and of course, again, I had to appeal to get my money back from Perak, and that happened in Kelantan as well. And the process took so long. And in the end, I couldn't do it through FAM. I had to go to FIFA, which I didn't want to do. And then FIFA then worked their way down through FAM. And in the end, I got my salary. I mean, and people laugh. They used to say, oh, Tan Sri Anwar. He was okay, Tan Sri Anwar. I got on well with him. He was never a problem, because he'd tell you straight to your face what he didn't agree with you. And I don't mind that. But I had other people in Kelantan who were going behind my back. And I just say, because I spoke Bahasa Sikit, I could actually understand some of the things that they were saying. So the interference that was going on in Kelantan was amazing. But it wasn't Tan Sri. He was okay. So it is this political influence of going on behind the scenes, trying to undermine. We should all be going. I mean, it's not only Malaysia. India was even worse. When I was at Mohammedan, I didn't realize until I went in, I was appointed by half of the committee. The other half wanted somebody else. They actually wanted a local who they knew they could manipulate. And I was brought in by the other half, and that was a sponsor who they knew I wouldn't bow to that. They were just working their way to get rid of me for the whole time I was there. Half the committee were trying to get me out. And in the end, I just say, I don't need this anymore. I don't need to spend my life like this. And so I went in the end. So it's not just Malaysia, I might add. Vietnam is enormous political interference. So it tends to be stronger in Asia than it does in Europe. I'm not saying it doesn't go on in Europe. I'm sure the Italians it happens as well. I'm sure it's now happening more with ownership in England. Foreign ownership usually, but it's starting to happen. But it's certainly on a more common level. There seems to be more political interference in not allowing to do the job. If Subramaniam appoints me, you appoint me. If you want to sack me, I've got no problem with that, because you've got that right as an employer to sack the employee. As long as you pay me out the contract in full, and I haven't done anything illegal or immoral or whatever, as long as it's been sacked on your opinion of results or whatever, I'll accept that.
Okay.
But don't sack me and not pay me.
Okay.
Don't sack me for the wrong reasons. Because I wouldn't pick your nephew, things like that.
Okay. That's a very good point. Now, let me ask you this. You have said so many things. Now, do you think the right people are leading football in Malaysia, that goes to the National Association and also clubs that you have worked with? And you have had 10 years roughly, or 6 seasons of of experience with our clubs here, you will definitely have an opinion. What do you think compared to Bahrain, Australia, Vietnam, Thailand, India, and so on? Do you think we all have the same problem, or Malaysia is unique because the right people, whether we have the right people or not? That's the question. What do you feel?
Yeah, I don't think it's unique. I think there's problems all over politically in many areas like that. Thailand, for example, Zico got sacked by the president. The fans loved him, the players loved him, the president didn't like him, sacked him. Madness, Kiatasuk. So it goes on everywhere. I think it's down to the individual. There are some I worked with some great administrators in Malaysia. Not all of them are bad, some really good, Dato Paul, Windsor, there was Subramaniam, who was at the AFC. The ones I've mentioned in Perak and Johor were excellent. So there are certainly some. There was Azudin was very good with me. Correct me if I spelt it wrong. At FAM. So yeah. There are some really good people. They're often hamstrung by the structure. I think Malaysia's structure is unique in as much it's the hierarchical structure. They will look after the person above has too much power. The person above him has more power. I saw things going on. The combination. I saw money disappearing in some cases. Again, you can't prove it. That's why I can't say who I thought was taking money, because it's wrong to say it if I can't prove it. But I saw things like corruption going on. I saw other things happening which I know were done for the wrong reasons. But again, it's all about proof. But I think it's all over Asia, and I think it's down to the individual. I think the problem you have as well in Malaysia is the state structure. But I don't know how to beat it, because there have been some good clubs, but they've all seemed to have failed. Only JDT has survived through basically royal money, we'll say. Royalty money has saved JDT. The rest are the state bodies. The clubs have tried and failed. Often failed maybe because the states weren't helping them. That is the only unique thing I find about Malaysia, is this state structure. And of course, the voting structure is linked to the states. Therefore, the power lies with the states. That could be a political problem.
Now, my next question will put you on the spot. Do you think the elections, the appointments in Malaysia is racially biased?
Hard to say, because there are not many Chinese at the top, are there? So that's one way of saying it. But are there? Let's be blunt. It goes on. Racism goes on. I'm not going to kid you. I made Nanthakuma my highest paid player, because I did the budget at Perak. I made Nanthakuma the highest paid player, and I got criticism for that. But no one would say to me, to my face, why it was wrong. They say, but I'd say, what do you mean he's not good enough? Oh no, he's a good player. I said, do you mean he's not a Malaysian international? No, yeah. I said, yeah, he's a Malaysian international. But I said, he's Malaysian, isn't he? He's born in Malaysia, isn't he? And they wouldn't say it. So I wouldn't say there's overt racism, but there's certainly covert. Is that correct?
Yeah.
There's something underneath. Beneath it goes on. And hey, let's be honest, it goes on in England. India was worse. I had an Indian player come to me and say, "Coach, I like you white men. You don't insult me like us Indians do. He was from one part of India compared to another part of India." And of course the caste system was appalling. The caste system I found was abhorrent.
Absolutely.
So it's so hard in terms of the voting structure. I don't know, because to be honest, right now I don't know what the racial context is. But I mean, the ultimate answer, of course, is everyone Malaysian? And the answer is Yes, they're all Malaysian.
That's how it should be. That's how it should be. Yeah.
All Malaysian. How should
Yep.
be.
Yep.
But as you say, behind the scenes, and again, as a foreigner, the first response is, it's got nothing to do with you.
Yeah.
And that's what I was told, that, a couple of times. You'll never understand. It's nothing to do with you. So, and I knew Chinese lads who hated Malays. I knew Malays who hated Indians. I knew Indians who hated Chinese. It was a vicious circle. And the other time, I have got a wonderful picture of Perak where we had 7 nationalities, and I think it was 7 religions, and about 5 nationalities in the team, if you counted, and there was never ever a problem in the team.
Yeah.
I never found any racial problems on the pitch, on the training ground. I had Indian mixing with Chinese, with Malays, not a problem. I never found it. I can honestly say that, hand on my heart, not a problem in the dressing room.
Steve, being a teacher myself for the beginning part of my life, it starts, this racism thing actually doesn't start on the pitch of the place of work. It starts right from the beginning, from the families, from the homes to the schools, and it transcends into our working life, daily lives, and so on. It is built. Parents tell kids, do not mix with this race and that race, and they belittle this race here and there, and these kids go on to have that, and eventually when these kids start their life in certain positions, whether in government or in private sector, whether in football clubs, as coaches, as administrators, this thought comes in, and if they are not well educated along the line, many of our kids, our adults who have gone to study abroad, come back with a different opinion. But those educated here within a community, they tend to have this feeling, of this so-called racism, which I feel, as you said, Malaysia being a multiracial country should not have such a thing. But rightfully you said racism exists everywhere in the world, in every part of the world. Yeah.
I think what you said, the most important thing was that racism is learned.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I've got a picture of my daughter sitting in a bath when she was about 1 with 2 Indian kids in Perak. There were the 2 local next door neighbors. They all got a bath together, and they were all playing. And my daughter used to play with Kita Manju's kids.
Okay.
And you couldn't get much blacker than Kita Manju.
Okay.
And my daughter used to play with Francis Forky Doe's kids. Not a problem.
Yeah.
Both those kids didn't give a damn about the colour.
Yeah.
And yet, conversely, I come to England, and my daughter, who was half Vietnamese, she got called a chinky.
Okay.
And she got asked, do you see differently through your eyes? And her reply was, yes, I can see what you're wearing underneath your clothes. So it goes on. And that's, I just say, your word you use is the most important one, education.
Yeah.
You have to have, the higher educated you are, you usually find the less racist you are. Again, not always. There are some racists who are high up in government. We know that. In English government as well.
Yeah.
But overall, you like to think that, certainly I believe racism is learned, and if we stop it early, if we educate that, who does it matter what religion you are? It doesn't matter. I mean,
that's personal.
I might agree with you 100, disagree with you 100% in your religion, but that's your choice.
Yeah.
And you will disagree with me. My choice. As long as we don't fight about it.
As long as we don't impose on others what we think is right. Yeah, that's not right.
Yeah, but I found football to be one of the most non-racist sports or things in the world. As I say, Malaysia is multinational, more than Vietnam, obviously, more than Thailand.
Yes.
But even in Thailand, you had the Thais saying, "Oh, they're East Thai Chinese," and I'm looking, I'm going, I can't tell. How can you tell? Well, by his name. I said, you imagine how long the Thai names are anyway. So
Yeah.
I'm going.
Steve, I was in Indonesia. I was in Indonesia for 3 years, and my perception of Indonesia changed while being in Malaysia, and being there totally changed. They are beautiful people. I mean, it is the largest Muslim nation in the world with about 250, 60 million people, but they they don't look at you from your uh, racial background. They don't look at you from your religious background. They accept you the way you are. Of course, racism exists even in certain parts, certain people. You can't take it away. But on overall, I found it different. And as you said rightfully, you wouldn't know when you look at a person, because they come in different types, colors, they come in different texture and so on. You wouldn't be able to tell whether you are a Buddhist, you're a Hindu, you're a Muslim, you're a Christian. You wouldn't be able to tell. But who cares? It doesn't matter. Yeah. Exactly. That's how it should be. It should be one family having your own. I mean, I'm sure you as you are an exception. You would have eaten a Malaysian hot curry, roti canai, and so on. But we can be the same team, but you may not eat what I like, and I may not eat what you like. But that doesn't draw a line, So that's how it should be. Now, I'm coming to another topic, Steve. I'm sure you have a lot to say about this match fixing in Malaysia.
I've got a whole chapter on Keclong.
Yep. Looking forward to.
Yeah, there are two things. I've read 2 wonderful books on Keclong. Anybody is in Malaysian football should read them both. One is called The Fix by Declan Hill. That's an academic look at match fixing. That's worldwide.
Okay.
And that's the first thing I should say. Keclong, or match fixing, is worldwide. Let's not kid ourselves. It's all, where there's money, there's fixing, and there's money all over the world, so there's fixing all over the world.
Okay.
And the second book is called Keclong King, written by Wilson Raj Pamal, who was a convicted match fixer.
Okay.
And people said to me, "Oh, that's rubbish." I said, "It's not rubbish. Some of those games he's talking about, I was involved in, Okay. So, but I first came across match fixing in Malaysia. Now, it might have happened before when I was in Australia, but I don't know about it. I didn't know. But it certainly, I found out about, I was walking off the pitch and a player said to me, a foreigner, said, "Darbs, you're going to win 2-0. I said, "What do you mean we're going to win 2-0? It was 0-0 at half time, He says, "I know." He said, "It's fixed. We scored in the 84th and the 89th minute. That meant we didn't have enough time to get the third, because we didn't need a third anyway, and they weren't going to score because they wanted the 2-goal spread." And I suddenly learned that match fixing isn't black and white. It isn't winning a game or losing a game. It's the spreads, it's the spot fixing, and it was fascinating to me. And I'm sure, like for that example, I've won games because of match fixing. But when you're winning games, you think it's your coaching. You think you're a brilliant coach, and it's nothing to do with match fixing. And when you lose, usually the first thought is, was it fixed? And sometimes it wasn't fixed.
Yeah.
I had an example where I was playing away from home, and we were 2-1 down with 5 minutes to go. And that would have been a fair result. I'd have been delighted with a draw, and amazed. Next minute, ball comes across from a corner, my goalkeeper knocks it in his own net. Okay, hey, we've all done that. That was 3-1. Last minute, 40-yard shot. Whoa, dipping and swerving. I thought, what a great shot. 4-1. Didn't think we deserved to lose 4-1, but we got beat. I watched the video the next day. It was a VHS in those days, as you know. I watched it, and I suddenly realized the ball wasn't doing that. It was my goalkeeper was doing that. The ball was going straight. I spoke to one of the players who I trusted, and he just said to me, "Coach, we tried to win and get our match bonus, which they did, but we knew that if we lost, we had to lose by 3 goals, because that then we had a bet on getting that, and that got us our match bonus anyway. And that's what taught me about it wasn't black and white. And I thought, so I spoke to another player about it, and I said, tell me what happens. And he was a good lad, this fella. He said, coach, they ring you up and they say to you, we'd like you to do this, this, and this. You'll fix these games. And you say no. And you go, okay. How much do you earn? We know you earn, we'll say 3,000 a month. And he goes, yeah, how do you know? Because there's no secrets. We found that in Malaysia. That's another problem with the administration. Salaries were leaked.
Okay.
And they say, okay, we'll give you 10,000 then to fix this game. Now, 3.5 times your salary for one game. And the bloke said, I said, no, I'm not going to do it. And he just quietly whispered down the phone, does your mum still go to Carrefour or Tesco's on Saturday morning at 10 o'clock? And he said your stomach sinks, because you know what they mean, but they're not saying anything.
Okay.
You know what they mean. So does your
Indirectly intimidation, huh?
Does your daughter still go to that primary school and gets out at 3:30 every day? Now, what do you do as a young lad? You know, that's the first thing. And as he said to you, he said, if you take it, they pay you. And he said, you would get the 10,000. He said, but next time they come in, they wouldn't give you 10, they might give you 8. And what can you do? You can't complain, because who do you complain to? You can't go to, because you've already fixed the game. So you're a guilty party. You would then get suspended for life and all these type of things. So they have you. That's why it's so important not to get young kids corrupted, because if they're stuck in the system from the age of 18, you know, it's, and I think about it. To me, there's three ways of Kelong, 3 ways of cheating. If you cheat for money, like, oh, I just want the money to make, you know, buy a new car, I think it stinks. That's cheating. You should go for life, no matter what. Shouldn't be 5 years, it should be life, because you cheated your mates, your fans, everybody. If it's fear, that comes a different argument. You know, if someone says to you, I'm going to kill my daughter, I'll go, yeah, they're going to kill my daughter. What do I do? You know, do I think about it? You know, is it only a game of football? What happens if he means it? You know, fear comes into it. And the third one is money pressure. And that to me is often the key issue. If players are not paid on time, then they become desperate. Again, once we say a young lad left school at 16, 15, 16, can't handle his salary very well anyway, and suddenly hasn't been paid for 3 months, he's living on Maggie Mee, he started to borrow money, the debt collectors come in, they're charging 20% interest rate, there's pressure going on. So you've got to pay the players, you know, and it is difficult. I've been approached to do it. I can honestly say, hand on heart, that I've never taken any money. I've never had the pressure of my family being threatened, but I was threatened, and that was in Singapore. I was threatened with my life. I went to the police in this case, because Singapore, you know, as you know, is quite straight above in that area. And they couldn't find the person who was doing it, because in those days, it was early 2000s, they were using a fax phone, and you couldn't trace a fax phone apparently. So how it was solved was, my manager, I had another good manager in Singapore, he called in a sponsor who spoke Hokkien, because it was a Chinese person. You know, when the guy rang me, because he always rang at a certain time, the guy spoke to him in Hokkien and mentioned a few names who I knew. It never happened again. So all he did was he targeted layers above him. So he solved it by that way. So and that was the only way. I couldn't have solved it. That's how it's solved. Because as before, like I said, we pay the, you know, I said to my player in Malaysia, why don't you go to the police? He fell off the chair laughing. He says, coach, the money goes up this ladder. It's everywhere. They're all getting paid off. And I'm going, we had a case in Perak. I had a player report to me that he was being approached. He was a Malay player. You know, let's put it. He was approached by an Indian, and he got photographs taken of the bloke approaching him in the car park with his arm around him. So he came to me. I did what I felt was the right thing. I informed my president, who was great bloke, spot on, and he said, right, he says, we'll do the right thing. He sent a report to FAM. We never got a reply. He sent a report to the local police. And to be fair, the local police came around and they ended up sitting in the office, getting autographs and talking about who's going to win next week. It was just like it was, you know, and we gave him the picture of the bloke. You know, I've actually still got this picture because I kept it for, you know, and that is what was happening. And how they were doing it in Perak was they knew we were under pressure financially. They started taking the lads out for lunch. Come on, lads, we'll pay for you. They pay for the lunch. They suddenly said, and they get into their ears. They talk to them. Oh yeah, I'm struggling to pay the car. Hey, I'll pay the car off you this month. And that's how they were starting to get to them.
Okay.
You know, because usually what I found was the Indian lads were the runners. The big lads at the top were the Chinese, the money men.
Okay.
I mean, is that racial? I don't know, but that's what I found from
if you do it, you do it. You know, I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, do you think, in your opinion, when you watch a match now, do you think it still exists in Malaysia?
Oh, it exists everywhere.
Okay.
The only reason I say it doesn't exist in England now at the EPL is they can't afford to bribe the players.
Okay.
Because they're on that much money a week that, you know, when someone's on like Rooney, 500,000 a week he was on to get De Gea.
Okay.
How much are you going to pay him to fix a game?
Okay.
Yeah. So, but I'm not saying it doesn't go on lower down.
All right.
And I'm not saying as well that there's one bloke on the pitch who isn't on 500,000 a week. He might be on 50,000 a year. The referee. I've seen some things go on where I'm sure spot fixing has gone on. Referee. I have seen it go on. I think at World Cup level, because there's games I've seen. I was tipped off it was going to happen in a game. It was Cameroon, because Cameroon hadn't been paid. The administrators had stolen all their salaries. So the Cameroon players, and you look at the game, the World Cup in Brazil, Cameroon against Croatia, Cameroon against Brazil, and you'll see incidents where you see things have gone on. A red card in a certain minute. There's no need for the red card, but it happened. You know, you don't see goalkeepers making silly errors. You see them make good saves, but palm the ball into the path of the striker.
Yeah.
You know, it goes on. I mean, Singapore, it went on. We played a game and we were a good side, Home United. We won everything. So we usually won most matches. I played one match and our 7th goal went in, and that made it 7-2. That was 9 goals. And on the system, on the legal betting in Singapore, 9 goals plus, you couldn't, doesn't matter what you got after 9 goals, you got paid out what you bet. Okay. So about 300 lads walked out on the other side of the stadium. And I said to my assistant coach, again, a local, I said, what's happening? Why are they leaving? We haven't finished yet. He says, oh, 9 goals, coach. They got the money. They knew about it. And what it wasn't our lads, because our lad. And I looked at the video, and the goalkeeper never made a mistake. He was always about a meter off the right angle. And I had people like Perez Oliveira, Ekman Gonzalez, Indra Sahan, and they just popped the balls in the corners. They scored. You know, we ended up winning. I think it was 9-2 in the end. But once it got there, I found out a couple of years later when I left Malaysia, it was 28-1, the payout, and the goalkeeper, who was earning 2,000 Sing a month, had put 2,000 on at 28-1. So he picked up $56,000 quite legally. It wasn't him, because he obviously can't do it, but he got his mates or his family or someone to bet. Now, there's a story. Again, this one I can't prove, but a foreign coach of mine was told by his goalkeeper, he says, "Coach, 2 games a year," this is in Malaysia, "2 games a year are mine." He says, "But don't worry, it's away from home and you won't get blamed for it because it's away from home, you know." And the coach said, "Well, what do I do? Do I drop him? Because this number 2 goalkeeper was hopeless." He said, "Do I keep him? Because he's not only, he's going to cost us 6 points a year, but he's going to win us probably 15 or 16 points because he's that good a goalkeeper. So what do you do?" So he asked him, "Why do you do it?" And he did straight. He says, "I've got my kids in private education, and this is paying for my children's education." And it's a different set of different values, different morals, different ethics. And you don't know, was in his head, he was doing morally what he was right for his family. The British would never do it for the family type of thing because we're not family based. Asians are more family based, aren't they? You know, so it's a fascinating area. I don't think it'll ever be stopped because there's money involved, but I think you can reduce it, and the biggest way, pay your players on time.
Okay. Now, Steve, what do you think about a quick one? Yeah, what do you think about women's football in Malaysia?
Well, I've got a picture.
Just 1 second. You know, just about a week ago, we played Palestine in Palestine. We won, but there were reviews about the team saying that, you know, the ball control was not good. I think Palestine was worse off than us, so we lost. But of course, we were not better off than Thailand or Vietnam and so on. You having been coach of the Thai, what do you call, Vietnamese national team, you know what has been happening in the women's scenario in Malaysia. I can roughly know, but I want to hear it from you because some time back when I had an attachment in Japan, they took me to JFA's office, and on the rooftop there is a futsal court, and it is all netted so that the ball doesn't go out. So I was playing for the men's officers, technical people, and we played against the women's national team. And see, we were beaten flat out. They were that good. And then we went on to have dinner. While having dinner, I asked them, why do you put so much of emphasis, so much of money on women's football? And one thing among others caught my eye, caught my ears, or rather my attention. They said, you know, Subra, sometime in the future, these players, women players, from the Japanese perspective, will become mothers, and Japanese men, as you know, will go to work in the morning at 7 and will come back at 9 o'clock. They do not have time to take their children for football and whatnot. It is the mothers who manage these kids, and if they are footballers, our mission of promoting football becomes easy, and they stay, they bring sandwiches, they wait on the pitch, let the kids play, pick them back, take them back home, and so on. So this is what our culture, we want to build this culture of not dads promoting football and mom says, don't go out. Like, see, the typical Indian, Malaysian daughters, you cannot play football. Okay, this is the typical Indian, I would say. Yeah, being an Indian, I'm saying from the Indian perspective. Even sometimes Indian girls do not go to the stadiums because moms say, no, it's not for you, it's for men, it's for boys. But the Japanese did not look at that, and look at where Japan is now. So what is your take on that from your own perspective, and then coming back to the Malaysian perspective?
Well, I think the Japanese are just basically showing intelligence.
Yep.
because her dollar is as good as his dollar.
Yeah.
So, and the game belongs to us all. Doesn't belong to any gender, any race, whatever. So, on that sense, intellectually, it's the correct thing to do. That's the first thing. And I think morally, you know, in terms of success, yeah, you look at population base as well. Vietnam's got 85 million people, so you're probably looking at 40 million women. You know, Malaysia's only got about 20 million people, haven't they? So you're looking at 10 million for start. So you're going to reduce the amount of girls in your society. So when you've got that block of girls, how many of those girls are going to play? Well, some are not going to be interested, same as boys. Who cares? That's fine. Some are going to play other sports, no problem. But in Vietnam, for example, the girls played football and nothing else. There was no other. The odd one would play badminton, the odd other thing, you know. But they were encouraged to be sportswomen. The family encouraged them to do things like this. Again, to be fair, not as much as the boys. There was still an element of what you said before about the Indian kids or the Malay kids. But I do know, obviously, some of the Malay girls in particular will get abuse for not, if they get called haram, don't they? I've seen it on Facebook, you know. But I mean, I respect so much these girls who wear the tights, who play in the tudong. Nike are very intelligent. They've got a Nike tudong. You know, to me, again, as a non-Muslim, I respect so much these girls who love their religion, who support the view that they have to wear tudong, they have to wear tights. Got no problem, you know. And they're still playing, so they should be encouraged to play sport. It's so good for their mental health. It's so good for their physical health. I mean, I had lads, the Kelantan players, a lot of the Kelantan men wore tights. They didn't show their legs. That's fine. We didn't stop that. You know, we shouldn't stop that. It's there. We respect it. They match the same kit. Fine, we can work a way around things like that. There's always a way around the problem. But I think it's so wrong to say to a boy or a girl, you cannot play that sport. You know, they should be encouraged, A, to play sport, any sport. And obviously I'm biased, they should be encouraged to play football. And if they love football, encourage them. And that's where the Japanese, the USA, English football female football is booming. It's growing massively. They can't get enough pictures because the girls and some of the quality of the players. You look at a game under 10, under 11, you can't tell who's a boy, who's a girl. You really can't. And now there's academies. The Premier League players have got academies for girls. It is booming. And they're getting crowds. Everton played last week. They had 8,000 there. You know, so you look in the English League 2, they're getting 3,000. So Everton girls are getting 8,000. So they're getting twice as many as, say, Tranmere, for example, a men's team, you know, in League 2. So it is an economic, a business sense. It's correct to get females playing. To me, it's a moral sense. You should be letting all people be equal. And it's an educational sense. They're getting mental health and they're getting physical health from sports. So it's tough. It's tougher in Malaysia than probably anywhere. Obviously, not Saudi, you don't count that, and I imagine. But the Indian kids in India, I took sessions in Manipur, where most of the Indian girls' national team came from. They had some of the best six-packs I've ever seen. They were as hard as nails and good players. One of them now is playing for Rangers in Scotland. So she's took the big step. But one thing that did make it very sad, I spoke to this girl and she loved her football, great player, and she just let it in casually. Oh, but I'll stop once I get married. My husband won't let me play. And that was like hitting me with a hammer on the head. There's this girl had everything, but the second she got married, she accepted she would not play.
Yeah.
And I found I can't argue with that because I can't understand it, you know.
Yeah, it's sad. Yeah, it's sad indeed.
Yeah.
Now, Steve, we have covered a wide spectrum of questions, and it was fantastic to hear from you. Now, my last question would be, where do you think it is just a guessing game? Yeah, looking at what has happened, where do you think Malaysia would be from about 20 to 25 years from now? I mean, it's just a wild guess. I just want to take your thoughts, pick your thoughts on that.
I would love.
I'll rephrase. How
Yeah,
long
okay.
do you think we would take in order to be on par with? I don't want the world at large. I
Yeah,
would just go on to Japan because
yeah.
Japan is at the moment. Japan, Korea are the best in Asia. How long do you think we would take to reach that level?
Um, Money is the key
Okay.
to football all around the world, and there's
Okay.
certainly plenty of money in Malaysia. Used to break my heart when I saw Proton across the team of Norwich, across their shirts.
Okay.
Why don't Proton? So when I see the owner of Cardiff is Malaysian, why isn't he owning Selangor?
Yeah.
You know, Selangor should be booming. They should be huge. You know, like JDT are. JDT's doing things right. Pahang should be. You know, so it's there. I think there's so much there. Logically, Malaysia should be aiming for 2026 World Cup as
Okay.
being feasible, not a pipe dream. 2022 was a pipe dream because you have to start, but they should be looking as the Vietnamese are for 2026 because there's going to be more teams. There's going to be 48 teams, I think, in USA. So Asian places are going to be up for grabs. I think Vietnam will get into the World Cup in 2026.
Okay.
Possibly Thailand if they get organized, because the talent in Thailand is frightening. You know, but again, if you don't get the right, this is the point of the new coach who is very good. Now he's a local in the sense that he's been there 10 years. He's a Brazilian who's lived in Thailand for 10 years, Mano Polking. Excellent coach. Let's hope it succeeds with them. You know,
Okay.
they should have kept Zico. All the players know that, all the fans know that. But he became bigger than the president, so they got rid of him.
Okay.
You know, the president got rid of him. So it's feasible to me. I couldn't tell you 20 years, but I think it's feasible if Malaysia start organizing now and organizing, targeting the right players, 2026, because the playoffs start in 2024. So you've got to be looking at players who are at their peak in 2024. So you go down in age. So you're really looking. I mean, the SEA Games should be for the under 18s now. The Suzuki Cup should be for your under 23s. Laos, Cambodia, Myanmar, yeah, let them have their senior team in it. But Thailand, Vietnam, Malaysia should be under 18 SEA Games, under 23 Suzuki, Asian Cup, World Cup qualifiers, the senior team.
Okay. Now, I have a different perspective on that, Steve. Normally, the players should be playing enough football, run up towards the qualification, and so on. If you look at the game and matches structure, especially for the young players who are in the grassroots, then run up to the youth structure where you have the under 13s, the 14s, the 15s, and 16, 17, and so on. There is no school football in Malaysia. Our players, I remember being involved when Akmal Rizal, Rudy Ramli were all sent to Europe, and then at one point of time, Karl-Heinz Wegang took Khalid Jamlos to Germany, and I was the one who was heading the youth department then, and the reports came back. A lot of them say the players are okay. Of course, they have got technique. They are just not very strong compared to the European counterpart, but mentally they are a bit shy. That has to be improved. Technically, they are okay, but match fitness or fitting into a match has been a problem. Then I see why, because I was in Germany in 2003 to do my UEFA A license, and there in Hennef, I saw kids playing, and those kids were playing at their particular age compared to age. They were far better the way they played, not technically, Steve, but game understanding compared to the Malaysian counterpart. compared to the Malaysian boys who were playing here in the Milo Cup, in the Piala Belia, then the President's Cup, and so on. So, don't you think 2026 is far-fetched, looking at the way Thailand and Vietnam are shooting up at such a great speed? I really do not know whether we would make 2026. I would rather look at 2034, 30, 34. Yeah, much more realistic.
Well, yeah. I mean, that 2024 possibly, 2026 is the aim. Possibly,
Okay.
you're right. I think Vietnam will take Malaysia's place in that.
All right.
But what I agree with you 1,000% is game understanding. Playing, as a kid, I played 60 games a season.
Okay.
Hardly got coached. So I have got certain faults that I because there wasn't any coaching when I played. But game understanding was there because I was playing 3 times a weekend, and that to me is the key. Play. Playing is more important than coaching, and I say that as a coach. You learn by playing the game, and you learn if you're playing with better players as well.
Absolutely.
And fellas might be a bit 2 years older than you. I learned a lot playing Sunday League football with grown men, because if you made a mistake, they told you, and it wasn't gosh old chap. It was a bit stronger than that. You didn't make the mistake again. You learned about it. But funny enough, what you say, school football in England has died completely. Doesn't exist anymore.
Even in Malaysia. Yeah.
And there's so many good teachers, and basically, I'm like, I'm a teacher, phys ed teacher. If you can't, my phys ed training helped me coach so much, because it helped me to learn to organize. Because if you can't organize, you can't coach, because it's chaos on the training field if you can't organize.
Absolutely.
If you can organize, you've got a chance. Now, you might not be a great coach in the end, but at least you've got a chance if you're organized.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally agree. So now, your final, we are towards the tail end of the program, your final giveaway to Malaysian fans, Malaysian football people, Steve? What would you advise?
Giveaway, keep up the passion.
Okay.
Because the passion is there. I would not. I knew people. As you say, Malaysians, irrespective of race, who loved the game. Absolutely loved the game of football, and you can't buy that. You can't teach it. That is in the culture again. So you've got the passion. Keep up the passion. There's going to be crazy people. There's always crazy people. As I called one bloke a Kampong Bodo, the village idiot, because he was, you're going to get that. You're going to get English idiots. You get Italian idiots. You get Japanese idiots. But most people love the game, and I think that's the most important thing. And the main thing is, don't shout at the coach. and don't throw plastic bottles with liquid in that looks like whiskey, because it might hit me one day. A couple landed near my feet once or twice.
I've seen that.
Love the place. Would go back tomorrow. Love the Makan set up Malaysia. Loved it.
All right. Thank you, Steve.
Matter bagus.
Thank you. Now, Steve, I just want to share a little bit on what you said. I have been to a couple of Malaysia Cup finals, and one of those were when Perak was playing in Bukit Jalil, stadium of 100,000, filled to the brim. The spectators were divided into two, and genderless, raceless, religionless, you name it, no political biasness. We all stood together for football because we loved the game, and it still is, Steve. Although league matches are not filled up, but when it comes to the Malaysia Cup final, the stadium is filled to the brim, and that is passion. And you, when you stand in there, you can feel the what you call hairs on your arms raised, because the atmosphere. So we still have it. I still hope that whatever you have said on all platforms, on all avenues, whoever watches this takes the note of that. And we really would love to have you back, Steve, honestly. Wish you all the best, inshallah. Wish you all the best to you and your family, your mom. Take care. This is not the last. I will definitely get you back again for another session or two. I'll let you know about that.
If you're not in podcast jail because of me.
No, I will not. Yeah. And what we are trying to do is, in the midst, Ravi and I are trying to do it live, where people can comment, ask questions while we are having this session.
Anytime.
Yeah, I will do that. We are going towards that. Till then, thank you very much for your time, for your thoughts, and it was really great speaking to you. Yeah, have a good day. Enjoy yourself. Stay safe. Thank you. Terima kasih, Steve.